thing, I'm sure, but who have taken themselves out from totally from the mainstream of what is Christianity or what is Judaism or what is Islam today. And so that I think it is important that we get the message out as clearly as we can. That's why I spoke to that. I think this is what's the real America. This is not the real America, and it never has been, and it never should be. And so one thing that we are doing in this document is saying, well, this is what we believe is the real America. It is a place where religions are respected. If there's the old saying that you attack one religion, you attack them all. I think this is true. We are all believers, or people who do not believe in anything. They have the right. We're not happy with them, but they have the right to exist and not to be attacked by others. And so this is the first point, that basically we want the message to get out to people all around the world that the real America is a country that is open, is guaranteeing freedom of religion and everything else that you need to live a good life. With regard to what the general said, if he's correct, then we're really in trouble, because if somebody does something like this, it will create all kinds of problems all over the world, and I think we must be aware of that. And some of our own people are going to be hurt by this. It won't be their fault, but they happen to be Americans. They happen to be Christians. They happen to be Jews. So I think there's another reason why we should say to these people, be careful what you do, not just because it's the wrong thing to do, but because you can do more harm to your fellow Americans in dangerous areas around the world.
In response to the last two questions, one of the things that we did also at the table was to identify best practices that are going on in our local communities. What are we doing to promote interfaith relations in various places? Dr. Durley, for example, shared with us how Muslim, Jewish, Christian leaders have taken trips overseas together and developed a statement of principles that guide their actions. Part of the problem is that we have not shared these things widely enough. We've taken them for granted, and we've assumed that if we do it locally, that's enough. No, now we're realizing that we need to be able to share these with one another, that the word about interfaith relations, tolerance, dialogue will be lifted up as the dominant voice and not simply hidden in ways that we may have done too much of in the past.
Just one more quick word about the question of Florida. Obviously, not a surprise behind the scenes, there's a lot of discussion going on to try and persuade the people organizing this to abandon the idea. And if it fails, all across the country, there are coalitions that will be out protesting for mutual respect and diversity and religious freedom and liberty here in America. A lot depends on you. It is certainly a valid news story if a sacred book is burnt. But it is also a valid news story when good people of conscience representing the vast majority of Americans gather together to denounce it and to say it has no place in American life. And if you accurately portray that in a balanced way that shows both sides of it, it will be a significant constructive step towards lifting up the truth in terms of what America is and where the religious communities of America are.
Rabbi, there are 50 people in that church.
Why not have...
You don't have the mic. Go ahead. Heidi Noonan, Fox News. Cardinal McCarrick, just wondering, are you planning to speak to Pastor Jones personally on this issue?
I don't know the gentleman. I certainly am open. I'm open to do that. Probably would be better if someone from his own religious community spoke to him, because he probably will feel that I have a different faith or a different point of view on things. Be happy to do it, but I think that if I get some of my friends from the evangelical community who are equally troubled as I am by what they're going to do, I think that might be the answer. I'm not trying to get out of it and put it on somebody else, but it seems to me that that's the road to travel. If he were a Catholic pastor, I'd be happy to talk to him right away.
Matt.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I use that as a word of peace to everybody. We remember very well, my name is Uthman Itali. I actually am the president of African Heritage International, based in Boston, Massachusetts. I would like to thank the organizers, ISNA, and their interfaith organization. My question goes to the scholars or teachers as a teacher by profession, I see that we have a challenge. Much as these people did this horrible act of banning the Quran, which is a very clear book, that this is a book which is universal, teaching everybody like discipline and values. So how are we going to help our students in schools where we have so many challenges, as you know very well, that we have had issues like all cases where students have hung themselves because of they are being attacked by fellow students. So as religious leaders, I would like to request to what programs have we put in place to address this, especially in public schools. Thank you.
We did talk, so the question is about students. I think you mean Muslim students who are finding themselves stressed and anxious because of all of this this negative information and attacks on Muslims and Islam. And we know there have been a number of studies over the last number of years that have showed that American Muslim children have highly increased levels of anxiety, depression. There are scientific studies of this, and I'm sure this will increase it. So I think part of the message to the general public is we would like teachers, we would like counselors, healthcare workers, and others who interact with Muslim children who are in the vast majority in public schools to be mindful of that and to try to seek help from the Muslim community, from the interfaith community for resources on how to manage some of the tensions that may arise in the class, as well as to help the children. You know, it's a pastoral issue, it's a mental health issue. It is, of course, those in counterterrorism would say it's a security issue because you don't want the majority of the Muslim youth to be alienated from Muslim society. But let me just say, and to direct this to the Muslims around the world who may be listening to this, again, the issue of the Quran burning, yes, it's hurtful. It is a symbolic act that's intended to hurt and offend. Yet, especially during this holy month of Ramadan that we're just finishing, Muslims know that the Quran will not disappear with the burning of a book. It wouldn't disappear with the burning of all of the Qurans in the world, because millions of Muslims across the world have memorized the Quran. They have it in their heart. They live it every day. They refer to it as their source of ethics and compassion. So we as Muslims also need to take a step back, and although we feel hurt, although we're upset, and although we're alarmed by what this might mean, because book burning in history does not have a very good precedent for the rights of people's whose books are burned. I mean, a lot of terrible things have happened after book burnings. So it's alarming. But our community should feel confident that this is, you know, God's word is eternal and it won't be harmed by fire.
Riley with Talking Points Memo.
I'm Welton Gaddy, president of the Interfaith Alliance, and I want to be very specific in responding to what we can teach that will help our children. One, hate is neither a religious nor a democratic value. Two, difference is not a moral category. It's a reality. Diversity is a reality that we can learn to appreciate and from which we can benefit. Thirdly, for Americans, the First Amendment to the Constitution is the best friend that religion has in this nation, because it lets religions thrive without establishing one religion over another. If we could inculcate those three lessons in a curriculum to respond to your question, we'd make tremendous progress.
Next question, who has the mic?
Ryan Riley with Talking Points Memo. I wanted to get a sense of what you think the government's, how you gauge the government's reaction to this, both at the White House level and I guess also with the Justice Department. How would you gauge their reaction to any hate crimes that have gone on?
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about it, yeah. You want to go ahead? Sure.
later this afternoon, some of us will be meeting with the Attorney General. I think many of you know about this already. It comes from an earlier meeting that Reverend Gaddy and I were pleased to participate in which we met with the staff over at the Justice Department to talk about, at this crucial moment, the need for there to be a visible response by the government to put together, doing a lot of very effective things. They're prosecuting hate crimes. They are acting with their community service division to work together to help reconcile different groups and to diffuse the kinds of problems that have arisen. And this is true throughout, in the housing division, in terms of pursuit of the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Protection Act that almost everyone represented here helped write and get through Congress 10 years ago, celebrating its 10th anniversary on September 22nd, to ensure that religious houses of worship are able to be built where their believers need them to be built. And there's a lot that's going on, but it isn't being felt enough. It's a case where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, and there's a need for more vigorous action right now by the government. And so at the Attorney General's request, we will be meeting with the Attorney General later today in trying to work out what is the most effective way for us to parallel our actions and statements and activities over this next momentous week to try and lift up the clear image that this has no place in American life.
Just a quick comment from Jim Zogby from the Arab American Institute.
I think that the administration handling of this has been appropriate, and I'm pleased that the Attorney General will be meeting with us to talk about it further in the day, later in the day. But I think that, as our statement notes, some political figures have attempted to make this a wedge issue in this election. And while individuals in the Congress, Senator Durbin, for one, and Mayor Bloomberg, the head of Mayor of New York City, have made extraordinary statements. Many other political leaders and people running for office in this year's election have been disgraceful and have fueled this fire, and I think have done grave damage to the electorate in how this issue is being framed. And so it's not just a religious issue, it's not just a media issue, it has become a political issue. It should not have become that kind of issue, and I think we need to speak out against that.
And just to add another point, this morning, to talk to the point of the administration, we had one of the persons representing the administration with us with the neighborhood planning and also the White House initiative on faith-based initiatives. And so all of this information has been fed and will be fed to the White House so that they can have a deeper appreciation of the breadth of this body.
Next question? Okay. Where's the mic?
Sarah Posner with Religion Dispatches. Do you think there's been a robust enough pushback or debunking of a lot of the propaganda that perhaps has laid some of the groundwork for this reaction that we're seeing now? I'm thinking of movies like Obsession or Relentless or The Third Jihad, which a lot of Americans have seen and take as truth and might make them more receptive to these messages that they're hearing now. I mean, do you think there's been enough pushback against that and truth-telling about what Islam is really about?
So this is a great question about the response of the Muslim community or others or educators to the distortions about Islam. The reality is that there are very well-funded initiatives to spread misinformation about Islam. It's on the internet. There are these movies. They take a lot of resources, and there are people who are funding these initiatives and these projects. I'll tell you, for the Muslim community, we are finding ourselves so stretched. We are a young community. We're still at the mosque building stage, or trying to build mosques, as you can see, in many communities. Much less, you know, what about schools? What about outreach? To be able to make movies, you know, feature-length movies about Islam or documentary, to have hundreds or dozens of people on the internet making sure that in a Google search something accurate comes up about Islam. you know, we don't have the resources. We've been so